an opportunity to plan together, to work together, come up with different opportunities for events and for how they're going to do things here. So it's a great way for our students to get involved. Shouldn't have had her switch out because now the computer has frozen again. I'm trying to continue to look. Oh, this is bigger, I can see that. Another question that comes up, extracurriculars, sports and clubs. So our clubs rotate each semester, and if we can get this back, we have a list of our current clubs, but our clubs are not static. Some clubs we continue to have most years, but our clubs at the middle school are teacher-driven, and one of the things that you will find is pretty interesting for our students when it's time for clubs. Our teachers make a video, and they promote their club. And they say, if you've never tried this, for example, our cooking club this year, there's a few students who said, yeah, I don't really cook. And then they saw the promo, and they said, I think I want to try to sign up for cooking club. And so part of what we do for our clubs, which meet one day a week, one of the things that we do for our clubs is that we need to operate from the philosophy that our middle schoolers sometimes won't try things unless we encourage them to do it. And so some of these clubs our students have extreme interest in already, but some they don't. And so you can see the list that we have here. These clubs meet on Wednesdays during our advisory time. And then, I don't know where we are on the slides. And then we have other, so you can see some of these club sports in here. Our hoop troops, we've got a lot of young men who love to play basketball. Soccer, we have all of those. But then we have after school sports, which are focused on jamborees. And I see this question here, what is the difference between jamboree sports and club sports? Our jamboree sports, students sign up to participate, and they practice a couple of days a week. And then we have on a few Saturdays throughout the time that they're involved in the sport, our students get to participate and play. So, for example, if any of you were up here, especially as fifth grade parents, if you were up here for flag football on Saturday, the high school varsity was also playing basketball, and then the middle school swim team was hosting a jamboree. And so that was their second jamboree of the season. The first we hosted, which was great. I loved it. I volunteered, but I still smell like chlorine from the pool. But our students get the opportunity to be exposed to those sports. Our sports are open to everyone, and we have the after-school activity buses, so that allows our students to participate in those. And then as far as the clubs, since those happen during the school day, our students just sign up for them. And if they're able to make that club, if they are under the cap, then our students are able to participate in it. And then second semester, we will have a new set of clubs. Some will be the same, but some will be different. And our students will have the opportunity to try different clubs. And what I would say is, as new parents, encourage your children to try something different. If they already know they love basketball, I mean, that's fun. They can maybe do that once, but try to encourage them to do something different. Because I think that's a really important part of middle school, is getting new opportunities to try different things. As I told a student the other day, so you're telling me you don't like something, but you've never done it before. How do you know? And so that's one of the things that we really want to encourage our students to try new things, to have balance in life. And here's a hard one. And parents, this is really hard. Not to be afraid to fail. To try something different. Because if you are willing to try something new and you don't succeed right away, there's a great opportunity for learning. Not only in the classroom, but other things I think it's very important that we talk about that because some of our students are so concerned about always being perfect. I have to be right all the time. I would raise my hand, but I'm not sure of the answer, so I won't. And I think that's something that we really pride ourselves on in the middle school, is encouraging our students to learn through the mistakes they make and to be okay with making mistakes. Try something different and have that. So that's a big part of that.
I'd just like to add one thing to that. When looking at sports, because we often get the questions, what sports is happening in at a particular time? If you go to the KIS website and go to athletics, it will take you to a link there that shows all the sports and by the season. It also gives you information about the coaches and who to contact to register your child for those sports.
Okay, thank you. I'm glad we didn't knock that off. Other questions related to clubs and activities. One that came up is, can my student be in music and PE at the same time? And the answer is that yes, they can. There is often another question that comes up around if my student has never played an instrument before, my student doesn't have this experience, are they able to participate in the orchestra or the band? And I'm going to make Mr. Majors, since he has years of experience with band, talk a little bit about that. But the short answer is that, of course, students can have those opportunities.
Sure, I'll be glad to address that. And for those of you that don't know me, prior to this job, I was the high school band director in AP Music Theory and also taught some of our middle school music classes. So as you may know, a lot of our students, probably most of our students, are involved in some way in the arts in our band classes or choir classes, strings class, drama class. And so two of the questions that tend to come up is there a scheduling conflict between my student wanting to be in a fine arts class and their regular academic classes? No, there's not. A couple of years ago, we went from a 7-period day to an 8-period day, which actually opened up even more choice for that. So in terms of any of the scheduled classes your child has to take, there's no conflict there with our arts classes. And actually there are, depending on what they are, opportunities for students to be enrolled in more than one of our arts class, visual arts or music or drama. One of the other questions that tends to come up is that the perception that a lot of our students started taking music lessons very young, and if my child didn't do that, can they still be successful in our ensembles? And is there still a place for them to start? And the answer is yes. We have, and I know from my experience teaching last year, one of our 6th grade band classes that I co-taught with Mr. Shirk, we do have a lot of students that take music lessons very young. We also have a lot of students that don't. And so that there's not necessarily the advantage to taking the music lessons, and certainly the way Mr. Shirk and Mr. Bisco set up the music classes, the outside lessons are not necessary for success. And if it's something that your child loves, has a passion for, should you do it? Sure. Is it something that you have to do for them to be successful in the class? No, it's not. And then in terms of an entry point, if my child comes here as a 6th grader and wasn't involved in a music class, is there an ensemble for them? And certainly there is. With our choir classes, Mr. Brown's choir classes, most of those students will come into 6th grade choirs, and we have a boys choir and a girls choir and then an audition middle school choir as well. So lots of options without prior formal choir experience. Mr. Brown does a fantastic job for those students. We also have an intro to strings class this year for the first time. So for students that are interested in the orchestra side of things and haven't had that experience before, there's also an entry point for beginners there. And then Mr. Shirk and Mr. Bisco also do accommodate beginning band students, first-year players, into the symphonic blends where 6th graders are. So lots of options there for music students, and I think that answered the question.
I'm going back through the slides. One question that comes up is, does it matter which order you take your electives in? The short answer is no, with some exceptions. And one of the things that will happen is that some courses require a prerequisite that you've taken another course before. For example, you can't take art illustrations if you hadn't taken an art class prior to that. That shouldn't be your first class. But many of our classes don't require any previous course to be taken. So for many of our middle school students, what that means is they just have the opportunity to try something that they haven't tried before. And I think the bottom line is that there is occasionally a perception that elective courses aren't as rigorous as the other courses, or they shouldn't be as rigorous. And I think the important thing to know is that we wouldn't offer those courses if we didn't see the value in having them, and we didn't see that there is rigor involved and should be involved. So that's kind of a short answer to that, but the reality is that the courses that our students take are extremely valuable in all of them. A question about world language classes, it comes up. Some parents will ask, my student doesn't have any exposure to a world language, and so now they're going to take Spanish or French. And are they going to be behind everyone else? What are we going to do? Do I need to get them outside tutoring? Again, the short answer is no, because we work with our elementary teachers, and our middle school world language teachers work to place the students where they are appropriately. Because languages can be a class where students are in a variety of places. We want to make sure that our students are appropriately challenged. We also want to make sure that we don't place a student somewhere where they're going to be overwhelmed. So we have levels for that. That's something that we work on, the same as we would with math placements, just to make sure our students are where they need to be. I think is the next one homework. Homework. We give approximately 40 to 50 hours of homework every night for our students. I mean, that's the rumor that's out there. So you want to click the next one of the work study. Average, and again, I think this is an important thing to know. On average, our homework that we would expect our students to have at any given night, 1 hour plus. We usually try to encourage our students to do 30 minutes of reading additionally. So if you count the reading in there, 1.5 hours. But what I always tell students, but reading's so much fun, you don't even notice it. So what we do, since we have 4 blocks in a day, we ask our teachers that when they assign homework for our students to reinforce the concepts they've learned in class, we ask them to really keep that to about 15 minutes. And since we're on the block, what will happen is our students would have A-block homework for 15 minutes on Monday night, but they wouldn't have A-block class again until Wednesday. This is important to note. Because what happens is some students, none of your children will do this, they might wait to do some homework and not want to do it one night because they'll do it another night. And so what happens occasionally is our students, we encourage and push them to understand part of what we teach in foundations that is really important is time management, so that our students don't take 1 hour's worth of homework in one night and try to do 2 hours the next night and then complain about that they had too much homework. The other thing that I would mention about homework in terms of support from you as parents is really gauge where your students are doing the homework and how they're doing it. If I'm doing homework in my room and I'm messaging my friends and I'm also on YouTube, and then all of a sudden you come in to check and say, I thought you only had an hour's worth of homework. Why is it taking you 3 hours? So what I'd say is, you know your child best, but try to have one location where they do homework, and preferably a location where you or dad or mom or whoever, aunt, uncle, whoever is there to monitor them to make sure that they're engaged in the work. I don't have any issue with students taking a break if they've done a couple of classes worth of homework and then want to take a break. But what I've had this conversation with students over the years, sometimes students genuinely don't know that they're distracting themselves from their homework. So it's important to know that. Our students shouldn't have large amounts of homework. However, they get distracted, that happens. And so I think as parents, if you can do things like that to help, that would be really good for your child. And then I think the other piece is that if you're noticing your child is taking considerably longer in a particular class or with particular assignments, the best point there would be to reach out to the teacher and express some concern. Maybe there is something more going on there. If 15 minutes of homework in science every night is taking your child 45 minutes to an hour, and you know that they're not distracted, it might be worth a conversation with the teacher to see what's going on. But I think ultimately, the idea is that we set up systems for our students to be successful. We'll do that here, and the support you guys can give at home is to just make sure that when it's time to concentrate on homework. Free time. What do our middle schoolers do with their free time? They don't really have any, sorry. Well, that's true and not true. I think one question that comes up is that if you know what's going on at the high school, all of our high school students, they have an 8-block schedule, but they actually take 7 academic courses. And one of those blocks is what is called autonomous time. Students will do homework. They might meet with teachers, members of a group to prepare for a project or a presentation. Our middle school students do not have anything like that. Our middle school students have an advisory class where they are doing reassessments, getting support, getting help, and that is Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday currently, with Wednesday at that same time being for clubs. But again, they're with a teacher. They are monitored. Often their teacher and advisory will actually check their Power School and Schoology and talk to the students about what support they can give them. And then I think the other part is students have what they might think is free time at recess. And they do. Each day at the end of lunch, our students have time to go to different locations, whether it's the field or the middle school rooftop. Some of them will go to the library, some will stay in the cafeteria, but all of those areas are supervised. So there are adults, and we have a schedule our teachers rotate through. There are adults there at all times. So the answer is, if your 5th graders don't know and they're trying to find out, that's about what they get for free time. But part of that is that we value your children, and we want to make sure that we have a good eye on them. And we work at the middle school, self-advocacy and independence that allows them to do that successfully in the autonomous block of high school. And that's a big part of that. I love middle schoolers. I've been working with them a long time. But if I gave some of them 80 minutes to just go, hey, go do some work, some of them might not choose to do work or use that time wisely. I have to remind the high school students of that as well. Thank you. 10 minutes before I'm going to the cafeteria for lunch. Social concerns. There are no social concerns. Everybody's perfect. Our students are always doing the right things every day. Actually, in general, our students are pretty great, and they do amazing things. But we understand that there are social concerns that come up, and some of them are new in middle school that didn't exist in elementary school. One of the things that consistently comes up at a school where we have a number of students who speak Korean, who have that background, we have an English-only policy. How do we discourage students from speaking Korean? We address it from an administrative standpoint when we are aware of it. And we don't just look at it as a discipline issue. We try to remind our students that it's a matter of being inclusive. And so I know that I addressed a couple of young men earlier in the year. They were 8th grade boys, and they were walking to the bus, talking to each other in Korean, being pleasant, no one else was around. So we addressed it. When I talked to them, I said, you know, I just want to be honest, I kind of feel left out because I can't understand what you're saying. And they laughed and said, well, you're not one of our friends. It's not really that important. And I said, but what if another student who is your friend, and you didn't see him, how would he feel? And that actually had a bigger impact with them, because I think it's much easier for students to have empathy with other students than it is for them with us. We were never in middle school, according to them. understand anything. All of the things that have ever happened to them, we don't know anything about. We're just, you know, it's been too long. But one of the things that we really push on around this and other groups and clique issues is empathy. I would love to tell you that it's perfect and we never have that problem. But the reality is that it comes up. And I can tell you, if you ask around, KIS is a very small community, I am bent with every fiber of my being at making sure that our students feel included. And our students are really good about that. This is a great place. So what happens is, if there is ever a time where somebody feels excluded, it feels a lot more hurtful and a lot worse here, because I think we're so good about being inclusive that we notice it more. And I've been in other places where it's the opposite. We have to work so hard to be inclusive. But here, we just need to remember to have that empathy. So we work really hard with our students on that. We encourage self-advocacy with our middle school students in numerous ways. Our advisory program is a big part of that. Our teachers in advisory work with the individual students on how to stand up, how to speak for themselves, how to address social issues. I can tell you that in the cafeteria on Friday, I reminded our students that when you have a concern or you need to talk to somebody, if you're not comfortable doing it in front of everyone, there are other ways to approach that. And we talked about what that would look like. If you feel like you need to talk to an adult, you can talk to an adult in a safe space. You can send an email. And we do that both for academic concerns and social concerns. This year, I've already had a 6th grader who was really nervous because they hadn't turned in an assignment. It was late. And they were almost in tears. My teacher's going to hate me. What am I going to do? How do I solve this? They're never going to let me take this assignment, turn it in. I'm not going to pass. I said, well, let's talk about what we can do and what we can say. And they were ready. They said, ready to go talk to the teacher. And then I said, do you want me to go with you? And we went. And as you could expect, as you could expect, the teacher was like, well, of course I want you to turn this in. Of course, you can always talk to me. And I can tell you that now, that particular situation, guess who's the favorite teacher for that student? The one they were so scared to talk to earlier in the year. It just takes some time, and we have to work on that. There is peer pressure in the middle school. There's peer pressure in the elementary school. There's peer pressure in the high school. There's peer pressure in the adult world. But it is something that we see and that we work on. I think one of the biggest forms of peer pressure that we see is students being afraid to be the one in the group to say, hey, wait a second, I don't want to do that. And it can be really small things to really big things, as in, supposed to be going up to the rooftop right now because it's early, let's all go up there. I know students will sometimes go, well, I didn't really want to go, but my friends were going and I didn't know how to say no. So that is something we are working very hard on educating our students about. Dr. Roden, as counselor, is masterful at that. Mr. Majors is good. But I will tell you even better, like, we have teachers that will work on that with them. How to say to another student, you don't feel comfortable doing something. How do you tell an 8th grader, if you're a 6th grader, that you don't feel comfortable with what they're doing or where they are? And how do you do it in a way that is respectful and shows somebody that you still care about them? Those are things that we continue to work on through our advisory program, individual teachers. And as an admin, we are working on it daily with our students. You want to say anything about counseling, Dr. Roden?
So, this question was asked, how can I get counseling for my child? And it's simple or complex, depending. Parents can email me or call me and ask me to speak to your child about certain things. It could be academically based or it could be social. They're having a situation with friends, or they're not sure how to manage their time. I can help with that. I also get recommendations from students. They come to me directly, and it could be within the halls. Oh, Dr. Gordon, I need to speak to you for a second. They may email me, just write me a note that they want to see me. Also, if teachers are noticing that students are in the classroom but not really participating or just seem a little bit down, teachers might contact me as well and just ask me to check in on a child. So I can speak to students in several different ways. As Mr. Slade was talking about, within our advisory program, I really want to stress that we work on character building skills, and that's really important all throughout the year. And every quarter we concentrate on one particular skill. So for instance, right now is positive relationship. Every morning we start our day with a quote that is related to that topic, and we remind our students that they should be looking at ways to build those positive relationships. We also have something called gotchas, where a student can shout out another student if they see that they are helping each other, to really, again, stress those positive skills that we want to see within the classroom. So not only are they able to give a shout out to their peers, but teachers are also recognizing students for those skills. So again, we want to make sure that we are constantly building those skills, those character building skills, along with inclusivity and things of that nature, so that way the whole middle school feels connected.
Since I'm going to pull the first part of my disappearing act before I return, I just want to say, despite the fact that I have allergies, hopefully you get that I'm excited about what I do. I talk too fast, I get really excited. But in 19 years of working in education, there were a few years I worked in high school. I won't get into that. I've worked with middle schoolers. I love it. They're great. They're amazing. And I think for me, one of the most important things that I keep in mind is sometimes you have to remind me, if I'm not great with you guys, they're always on my mind. What's best for them? And I love parents too. You guys are great. But sometimes I'm like, yeah, it's great. I gotta go talk to this kid. But for me, the most important thing we can do as parents in a school is to partner in what's best for our children. And sometimes that means that we have to sit down and try and make decisions or make plans. But we're all about educating our students, not just in the academics, but in everything else. And I know that with that, sometimes will come trying to educate parents. Just out of curiosity, how many of you are, next year will be your first middle school student? So it's really scary. It's really scary. And I can tell you, as nervous and scared as they are, they will be really comfortable way before you are. They're like, oh yeah, it's no big deal, Mom, Dad, we got to figure it out. But the important thing to remember is, even though you are now going to be the middle school parent, it's not time to just leave them alone and let them figure it out on their own. We want them to figure things out on their own, but we need to help with that. So with that said, since I know I'll be leaving and coming back, our doors are always open. I'm always available if you want to get in touch with me and meet. You talk about your student in particular. You want to talk about a concern that you have. But the most important thing that you can take home to your fifth grader is that that also applies for them. Because I think sometimes it feels really easy to talk to adults, and then you come to this big middle school and it's so scary. And they're nervous about talking to us. But what most of the students have found is that we're really just big teddy bears and we want to help them. So I'm going to let Mr. Majors talk about technology. I'm sorry, experiential education and technology later. I will return after I've made sure that all of our 6th, 7th, and 8th graders are fed and have left it nice and clean for the 5th graders when they come to the lunch after. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Slade.
I'll be back.
Okay, so we mentioned at the beginning that there was a Google link. That link is actually live. So just to point out that you do have these on your table, that if you're thinking of a question as we go on something that you want to address, we want to be sure and answer that once we're done today or once we're done talking at you to make sure that we can cover these questions that you have. And you're free to write that in English or Korean and we can translate an answer. So there should be pencils and these at your table. If you have questions, we don't cover. Okay, next is experiential education. Now, if your child is here now, then in 5th grade, in 4th grade actually this year, they've experienced at least a taste of the experiential education piece that we do here at KIS. Now, speaking specifically to what this looks like for 6th graders and specifically what it will look like in the fall, our 6th grade level students are the only ones that do a fall overnight EE trip in the middle school. And the reason for this is because it happens very quickly in the year, and the theme for that entire trip is about making connections and building relationships. And so just almost right away, and next year it's going to be very soon after school starts, our 6th graders will spend 1 night and 2 days off campus. They're at the resort, and I always mispronounce it. But it's great. And they spend 2 days there, and they do lots of team building and trust building activities, both with each other as students and as a 6th grade class, and also with our 6th grade teachers. And to put my dad hat on for a second and address this, I know one of the concerns that we often hear is that as a 5th grader or as an ES student, my child has that homeroom teacher. And they have the teacher that they're with a lot, right? And that's that connection and that bond between the student and the homeroom teacher. And I know that each year, my boys have been here, the homeroom teacher has definitely been more important in their life than I have. It's like, yeah, but my teacher says this. So what does that look like in middle school because they don't have a homeroom teacher? Yes and no. They do rotate between classes, but they also have that advisory teacher. Now, we've spoken quite a bit about advisory today, but it is a very important part of what we do in terms of the social and the emotional growth of the students is what happens in advisory, and particularly for our 6th grade students. So as part of the elementary, the experiential education trip, our 6th grade students spend that time bonding with their peers. They spend that time bonding with their teachers. They get to know their advisory teachers better. The advisory teacher is in charge of most of the activities that the students will go through on that. And it is a really good time for them to make that connection, to find a trusted friend, and to find a trusted adult. And I can tell you that each time when I'm sitting down and students have a problem and they're in the office with me and we're working to navigate that situation, and I ask the students, who do you trust? Is there a teacher you trust? And even at this relatively early point in the year, still remember that even the 6th graders can say, oh, well, Mr. this teacher or Miss that teacher, I really trust them. I said, okay, let's go talk with that teacher about this. So myself, Mr. Slate, Dr. Roden are always there to help the students with these issues. It doesn't have to be us. Our teachers are really good with making those connections, particularly with our 6th graders, and giving them that adult voice here in the school for them to become comfortable with and to navigate these situations. Let's go ahead and pass this one, and I think we're on to technology now. Okay, so how much technology is used in the middle school? I hear that there's lots and lots of technology. Probably the biggest change for your child is going to be that they will switch from using the iPads to using the MacBooks more or less exclusively. Now, as part of what's built into, at this point, our foundations class, and probably even on a bit of a wider scale next year, we spend a lot of time very intentionally working with our 6th graders and then our new students to KIS as 7th and 8th graders. If they weren't here in the past, or if they're a rising 6th grader on, how do we navigate the MacBook? What's the difference between the laptop and the iPad? Even things like typing skills, but also how do I organize my calendar? How do I keep track of my assignments? How do I organize my Google Drive and all of these things? So the technology part is MacBook based, and we spend a lot of time very intentionally ensuring that our students are comfortable with that, or that they know who to come to when they're not comfortable. Now, are all of their assignments technology based? Are all of their assignments something on a Google Doc or something, create a video? All of them? No. Many of them? Yeah. But we also have more of the traditional assignments. We have written work, we have written assignments in class, and that sort of thing. So if your student tells you, if your child tells you, but I have to do all of this stuff on the computer, as Mr. Slade said, maybe peek over the shoulder, see if there's some Facebook going on, or if there's a little YouTube sneaking in, because we do use the computer and we do use the apps heavily, but it's not all of what we do. What's next? Oh, wait, let's go back to recommended study text digital books. Some of our textbooks are traditional hardback paper textbooks. We do have some online textbooks as well that some of our classes use. However, we don't have like a recommended list of here are additional study books or electronic sources that you can use outside. If there's something that's relevant to the class that's a good resource, the teacher will share that when the student gets into that class. But in terms of ahead of time, here's everything that you would need in addition to. It's not really anything like that that you would need to be concerned about. Okay, Dr. Roden, do you want to talk about some scheduling, and then we will get to some questions.
All right, so for the week, this is how your child's schedule usually looks. Monday through Thursday, your child takes 4 classes. They will take A, B, they'll go to advisory, which is about a 30-minute block. They'll have lunch and then go to 2 more classes. They'll do the same for the next few days with clubs as it is this year on Wednesdays. But on Friday, you'll notice that they go to class for all 8 of their blocks. Obviously, those blocks are a lot shorter, and they do not have advisory on that day. So I was asked, how does my child get into certain classes? And we'll talk about the dates of that in a little bit. But basically, students will get a registration form, and they'll register for their classes on that form. When they come for our shadow day, they will actually register for their classes. All of their core classes, math, science, social studies, and then their elective classes as well. We then put all that information into the system, and then it's based on what classes they choose. Obviously, they need to take all of their core classes, but you may have some students who choose first choice choir and then second choice band. So kind of plays around with the percentages. And then we make sure, obviously, all students have all of their core classes, the 6th grade wheel, and then one of their elective choices. We want to talk to you about some things that are coming up that we believe will be very helpful to you. So on January 18th, somewhere around there approximate, we are going to send home the registration forms. We're going to give it to the 5th grade parents and, the 5th grade teachers to give to the students. When you get this form, we're asking you to, one, go over the form with the students. On the top or somewhere on the form, you'll have the link to the course registration information, courses that Mr. Slade showed before, so that way you can get detailed information about all of those courses. On January 23rd, we're having a principal call to, again, talk about the registration process, because at that time you will already have the documents, and then you may have some questions that might come up at that point. So you really want to address that information with you at that point. The end of January, I'm meeting with the elementary counselor, and we're actually going into all of the grade 5 with the students, and just to kind of talk to them about the transition. What are some things that they worry about? For instance, the question is, where's my locker? How do I open it? How do I find it? How do I get from B3 for swimming all the way up to the middle school 4th floor? Questions of that nature. So we want to kind of just walk through that information with the students, so that way they feel a little bit comfortable in a small setting. Again, it will be within their home classes and 5th grade. On February 1st, that's when all of our grade 5 students, both from this campus and Seoul campus, comes over to the middle school. And at that point, we start off with some games with our students. And we give them, it's kind of like a scavenger hunt for them to kind of do a tour of the school, but it's more in a fun way. So again, for them to feel a little bit comfortable with the school, so that way, and that they can have classes in one of 3 buildings: middle school building, the G building, or the high school building. We talk about registration. They get a little view of some of our other classes, such as the band or the orchestra might come up and play for them, again, for them to hear that and see, so they can choose if that's one of the classes they're interested in. And then we do the actual registration where they will register for their 2018, 2019 courses. At that point, they will then go to advisory with our current 6th grade students, so they have a feel again of what a 6th grade class is. Said our advisory is kind of similar to their homeroom class, but in there we do character building and just different activities. After that, they get a chance to go to lunch with middle school. This is usually, honestly, the highlight of their day, because not only are they sitting with the middle school, but then they can also go to the deli and to the school store, which they don't get to do as a 5th grade student.
Okay, so, oh, sorry, Dr. Wood. Okay, so we've talked a lot, but we want to give you the opportunity to have the floor. If you have questions at your table, if you wrote a question that you would like for us to address, or if you want to take maybe a minute to do that now, and I think maybe just collect those at one person at the table, and we'll come around and grab those in about a minute. We can address those as we go. This might be a great chance, if you need a break really quickly, to do that too, in about a minute, and we'll collect questions and then start to address that.
Every fiber of my being. What does that sound like in Korean?
What?
Every fiber of my being.
Well, I'm glad it's working. I think
It's there now.
how close.
Is there anything in the script at the end that is?
Oh, thank you.
Is there anything in the script?
I don't know. Let's see. Oh, okay. No, nothing. No.
We were here playing.
I
I don't know where it is.
I think when I hit back left, you're good here.
I think so.
I'll just send you a text.
Yeah, so this is actually on a handful of the forms. Because our technology was not cooperating today, we will share the slide presentation with you as parents, and so you'll have a chance to go back through and sort of digest at your own pace too. So we can definitely share the presentation out. Okay.
KAIA.
Yeah, KAIs. Just do middle school sports competing pack, Jamboree sports. Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah, Kelly, here you
There's a few
go.
more. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Yep. We'll just whatever. Well, I mean, I think just whatever is more appropriate. Like if it's a scheduling thing or something like that, you can talk about it. It's whoever makes more sense.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and start to address some of the questions, and these are in no particular order, just sort of however they happen to be in the stack. And I can tell you, just as we look through, some of these are similar, and so if you hear one more than once, or maybe we'll just address it briefly the second time. But, so in no particular order, the first question is, are middle school students allowed to stay within the school by themselves after school, accompanying an ES sibling? So that's a really good question. That's something that we discuss pretty regularly. So the policy is for our middle school students, if, I'm not on camera, sorry. The policy is for our middle school students, if they are here after school, they're expected to be here with a teacher and doing an after school activity. Students are not expected to be here and just on their own in the building or up playing basketball up on the hill or in the gym. There's a lot of reasons for that, and really it boils down to appropriate supervision. We want to be sure that our students are supervised at all time when they're on campus. And so if they're, and also most of our athletic facilities are in use almost every day of the week other than Mondays for teacher meetings, by whatever sport happens to be in season. So the short answer of that is any middle school student that's here after school should be here with a teacher, working with a teacher on something. If their child tells you they have to stay here after school, but probably not, maybe dig into that a bit. But that's the short version of that. What if they're accompanying an ES sibling? And it would be, I think, the same rules for the elementary school students, Ms. Yeager, after school. And if they're waiting a parent, it should be down in B3. Otherwise, they should be here working with a teacher if they're on campus after school hours. Question. Why the KIS middle school? And then it says academically and opportunities. And I will say that as both the administrator and the parent, because both here are truly top notch, and we have, then there's the data to show that. So we do the MAP testing that Mr. Slade mentioned earlier, and if your child has been here at Ponyo or Seoul campus, you're familiar with the MAP testing. And to talk technical side of it, the MAP testing data does bear out that our middle school students actually perform quite well, not only in terms of their growth from the beginning of the year to the end of the year, where they start out at the beginning of the year. One of the most impressive things to me as I look at the testing data is that compared to the national norm where most students start out, our students not only start out well above that, but continue to show growth throughout the school year. That's the technical side of things. Also in terms of the academics, if you want to talk about maybe the academics and the opportunities as one, our electives programs in the middle school. That your child has or thinks that they have and they want to learn more about during their middle school years, we have a class or a program or a club to address that. We've talked already about our music ensembles. We've talked about the drama classes and our drama productions that happen if your child is interested in the arts. If your child is interested in the technology side of things, individual engineering classes, which do incredible. I'm in the engineering classes all the time. Those teachers probably wish I wasn't so much, but every time I go in, they're doing amazing things. They're building bridges. The students are designing and building bridges, and they test for load weight ratios and all of these great things. We have a robotics program that is out of this world, and if you haven't yet, I invite you to take some time to see the secondary STEM suite for the high school, but our middle school robotics students utilize that space as well. Those are built into the school day. We have the wide range of sports that are offered after school. So it really, however you want to approach that, we have the data shows that the academics and the opportunities here are really just out of this world. Students are very competitive when you think about opportunities to, some of the opportunities to compete and to audition for other ensembles and to be a part of things that happen outside of school. KIS is second to none. I'm very proud of that reputation. And I'm very proud of the work that our teachers do as well. And my administrator had both. Can we share the presentation? Yes. Will we use Schoology next year or Google Classroom? And so there is conversation going, and the answer to the question is, so that's an ongoing conversation right now. And what we're doing, we do currently use Schoology, and we do currently use it at a more in-depth level than typically what most of our elementary school teachers do, because it serves a different function for us. As fourth and fifth grade parents, you probably got more familiar with Schoology than you were in the lower ES years. But in middle school years, Schoology has, to this point of this year, is our way. It's a communication platform between teachers and students. It's also a way that students create and submit assignments, and a lot of the work is submitted through Schoology that they will do. We are looking to what we're doing with Schoology fits the needs of our students and our families, and is Schoology the platform that fits the needs of the students and their families. So in that, what we're doing there, and the way that we communicate with students and parents, and the way that we submit and track assignments and do our grading, that it's the best platform possible. And so we are having those conversations right now. And honestly, as to what it looks like exactly next year, I can't tell you that right now, other than that we are working through the process to make sure that whatever we're using fits your needs and our students' needs the best. Jamboree sports, how long are Jamboree sports practices? Jamboree sports practice for 2 days a week after school. The time for the students to be on our 5 o'clock or 5:20 activity buses. So typically they'll start at as quickly after 3 o'clock as they can get started. They'll end around 5, so students have time to change. We utilize our KIS transportation. The students can be on the after school activity buses and on their way home at 5:20. It's 2 days a week, and typically during whichever season that your child is participating in, somewhere between two or three jamborees that will happen on a Saturday. Really what our Jamboree sports look like. Not to be confused with club sports. I know sometimes the distinction gets blurred, but Jamboree sports are the official after school sports 2 days a week.
For those new, no, okay.
How many new teachers will there be next year? Don't know yet. I can tell you right now that our teachers have a little bit longer to decide that, but I can tell you right now that I'm hoping that our teacher turnover is low, sort of looking like it's going to be in the middle school. The answer is teachers have a little bit longer to decide on that. So hey, you want to encourage the teachers to stick around? It'd be great, but we don't know that yet. We think it's going to be low, but we'll know for sure. The right answer, Ms. Query. And Michelle Query, our school director, is with us. She was sneaking in and out of the back. I want to make sure that we appreciate her time with us today.
These are, so let's go there.
Okay, so 2 of these I'll answer, then 1 of these I'll hand over to Dr. Roden. But 1, are music practice rooms available for use after school? Yes, they are. And that would fall under the teacher supervision. So the student would need to make sure that but they just need to arrange that with the teacher ahead of time. And are private music lessons available? We don't do structured private lessons within the course of the school as a class or an extra thing. Many of our students do take private lessons, many do not. If that's something that your child is interested in, then whichever ensemble director that they're with next year can certainly help facilitate for that for them and to find the instructor outside. And then, Dr. Roden, I'll let you handle the scheduling one here. Can students re-choose their world language class in middle school?
Yes. Yes, they can. So again, on February 1st, students will choose what world language class they want. So let's just say student decides that they want to choose Spanish for the sixth grade year. Wonderful. They can take an introductory Spanish class in 6th grade, but when they're in 6th grade, they realize, no, Spanish is not for me, I want to take French. They can decide to take French in 7th grade. They cannot make that decision midway through the year. They'll have to finish it, and then they can start a new language at the start of the upcoming years.
Here's another one for Dr. Roden. If a middle school student wants to take an additional course, is there a system where high school students tutor middle school students?
We do not have tutoring available for students from middle school, from high school to middle school at this point.
Okay. Do teachers grade on a curve? That's a great question. So, and just so the question is, do the teachers look at the average of all of the students in the class, and this many students get an A and this many get a B, and so that we have that bell curve shape? Our teachers in middle school don't do that. And so what we've done a lot of work on, our teachers have done a lot of work in the past and are currently working very hard, is to make sure that they're teaching the students to the standard of the subject material, which means that as 6th graders, for whichever course the child is enrolled in, we have national standards that say, as a 6th grade learner, the student in this course should be doing this, this, and this in these ways. And so it's based on the individual student, and are they meeting the standard or not? It's not that we take all of the grades and we do the average and the curve. It's strictly based on individual students and their level of mastery. Handwriting versus technology. My handwriting has gotten terrible because I spend so much time on the computers and I have to write something down and go, goodness, how do I do this? I can tell you that particularly in our English classes and somewhat in our science classes, and even the math classes, just off the top of my head, they're very intentional about having the students actually do paper on pencil, that's backwards, pencil on paper writing. Because there not only is there value just in the handwriting, right, to make sure that our students do maintain some standard of handwriting, but also in the actual process of creating a document by hand and going and doing the edits and crossing things out and making notations and marks. And so there is an intentional effort on the part of our teachers to make sure that handwriting is a part of the curriculum. And that ties back to the technology slide earlier. A lot of what we do is technology-based, but certainly not all of it is technology-based. I'll get too many piles now.
These are completed already? Okay.
Is there grading in the middle school? There is. And so, and I think that was one of the slides that we had to sort of skip over in our presentation, wasn't working properly. There is grading in the middle school, and it's a letter grading scale, A's, B's, C's, D's. And again, it's based on making sure that the students reach a standard of mastery. Now, one of the differences that you will see in middle school from the elementary school is that in this, that there is actually a number grade attached to it. That becomes sometimes very important for our students, sometimes very important for our families. But the thing that's important to realize is that the teachers are not teaching and encouraging the number grade. They're encouraging the mastery of the subject letter. So there are grades, there are letter grades, there are number grades. Our grading scale is online. But it's important, again, that the focus would be on mastering the subject level and not necessarily being focused just on, I need this particular grade. Do you introduce the Olympiad in middle school? Is that math Olympiad? We don't have that program specifically, right? So our middle school students do have a lot of opportunities, but that unfortunately at this point is not one of them. I love this one. How do you address political topics? Do you avoid political topics? Political topics, I lost the handwriting for a bit, but. Do we address political topics? So, when appropriate, yes, and in appropriate ways. And so, and frankly, at the middle school level, there are contexts that arise when those discussions are appropriate in the classroom. It's not approached from this is the right side and this is the wrong side, but it's approached from as students mature and grow up and they become aware of these topics that affect us and that affect them. But the discussion can happen in the right way and is facilitated in the classrooms where it's appropriate and never in a way that the students choose sides. The students are allowed to see things on different sides, but it's not something that we specifically try to avoid. In the middle school, when appropriate, we do address. Here's one for me and one for Dr. Roden. So the one for me, can students go to the convenience store by themselves? Yes, but they can, but not all day, at all times. So the middle school students have access to the convenience store during the lunch recess time at the end of lunch. So from on a Monday through Thursday, that would be from 11:15 to 11:36, 38. No.
Sure. Somewhere around.
So about a 25-minute period when our students have access to the convenience store. We don't go in with them and choose what they buy, but they do have access on a limited.
Also want to add to that, students first have to get lunch first before they go into the convenience store. And we put that in place because we want to make sure students are having a healthy meal before they fill up on chips and other snacks.
It's ice cream, it's always ice cream. Okay, Dr. Roden, how many students are assigned to each advisory teacher? How many students per advisory class?
At this point, our largest advisory class is 14. So they're pretty small, and again, students have a chance to bond with that student and they do different activities and lessons throughout the school year. But right now, our largest is 14.
Dr. Roden, before students register for classes, do they have sessions with their homeroom teachers to learn what classes to sign up for and select?
Yes and no. As mentioned, myself and the elementary counselor are going to speak with grade 5 students, and we'll talk briefly about classes. But they have a choice of 4 elective classes, and to get information for those 4 elective classes that they can choose from, they would go on to our course descriptions and get information there.
And only because I feel bad that I blinked out on it, the students can go to the convenience store from 11:45 to 12:08. If that was important. Okay, talk about Jamboree sports and kayak participation. So Jamboree sports, we talked about a little bit. Kayak, if you're familiar or not, is the governing body for our high school athletics. In our high school, you'll often hear that we have kayak tournaments here. It's not the small boat. It's Korea Association of
I should know this.
It's the high school athletic governing body. Our middle school teams, our middle school Jamboree sports don't participate in kayak in the same way that the high school students do. So there's not a season-ending tournament as such for the middle school students that there would be in the same way that the high school students are. So middle school sports, similar but different. Middle school sports are focused more on the development of the student. Many of our students are playing these sports for the first time. And so there's there's learning and growth, and it really becomes the focus there more than strictly the competition. Are there winter and summer camp activities? Yes to both. We have our first winter program that's going to be happening this year, and I'm not sure if enrollment is still open for that or not, but I don't think it is. But there's winter program. Oh, Ms. Clearance says yes. Okay, so still there, and there is a winter program website attached to the KIS website. Also the summer program that's very near and dear to me because it's been a big part of what I've done for the last 3 years. Although that won't be me this year, we will have the summer program ongoing and continuing as well. And that happens for the first 4 weeks after school ends in June, and 2 2-week sessions. So winter programs now and summer programs. Yes, ma'am. Right, thank you. Right. Okay, is there a new student orientation in the middle school or some sort of entrance ceremony? And yes, there is. Dr. Roden, you want to talk a bit more about our new student orientation day?
Yes, that's usually the Friday before students start the first day of class. And all of your babies will come and we'll go over just things for them to know about the school. We'll do another tour with them. We'll answer some questions. We'll play some games with them. In addition to that, on that orientation day, they'll also complete any last-minute documentations that we need in order to properly place them in their class. And again, that happens right before they start school.
And the last one, again, what are the library hours? The library hours are open for the students to be in there with our library staff until 5 o'clock, and then that's shut down for the students to go home and get on the 5:20 bus. Although, again, it's important to understand that students that are staying to use the library should be in the library, where they can be supervised by our library staff. Other questions just in open session here? And feel free, myself or Dr. Roden or Mr. Slade, or if you don't trust us yet, Ms. Park, who is, again, the most important person in the middle school is Ms. Park, are glad to address any of those questions as you have them. There's one more slide that I'm going to attempt to show you, if it will. And it's not going to. So I will just talk through this last slide with you, and then we'll end our meeting, and Dr. Roden and myself, Ms. Park, will stay for as long as you'd like to speak with us. So the one more thing that we wanted to just leave you with is there homework for parents? There is a little bit of homework for parents today. So what can I do to help to prepare my child for rising 6th grade? Encourage independence at home. And that's something we talked about a lot, that we try to foster and encourage the self-advocacy, and that the students are becoming more confident and ready to speak up for themselves. So encourage that independence at home. Work with your child on goal setting, revisit and adjust those goals, celebrate when they meet them. Talk to your child at the dinner table, right? That seems like a small thing, but it's going to become more important the older that they get, that you maintain that communication, that you know what's happening in your student, that they feel comfortable in your child, that they feel comfortable coming to you. Practice with the Google Suite. If you're not familiar with the Google Drive and all of those things, have your child give you a quick tutorial, because your child knows they love to show you that stuff. My sons love to be in there and do that. And also to start to work with them on their time management, their organization. So having them set up a planner and sort of maintain goals and understanding what their schedule might look like, and get the students involved in that. And really just encouraging some of the skills that really will become more and more important as your child moves into middle school and out of middle school and into high school and life. Start taking the time to build that foundation now. Dr. Roden, anything else? There it is, by the way. Better late than never. Yes?
Just it's for the first time using the Mac computer.
Mhm.
Any guidance that we can download, or like program, children save program.
Oh, is Justin or I just left? Okay, so if you would like information about that, then just contact us, and we can. And so the question was, like, do we need to do anything ahead of time to get used to the MacBook and like the maybe safe internet searching practices and things like that? And so if you have questions about that, I would encourage you to contact our Ed Tech department. If you don't know them, contact us. And they're fantastic with supporting parents and students on exactly those kind of questions. We have an entire team of folks that were lurking around here helping us with our tech issues. Yes, ma'am?
Typically, at the start of the school year, through classes, students are getting training and workshops and comfortable with how to use, navigate, and keep their files organized. So I think that's a great idea for our sharing orientation times, when students have ed tech sessions for the pre-setup, and teaching you some of the tricks that they say they're doing their homework. But a few little tips like that, I think, will make you feel much better about the start of the middle school experience and keep it safe.
Yeah, and that's a big part of our foundations class, but if you want to get a head start on it, our Ed Tech team is a fantastic resource. Other questions? Dr. Roden?
It was brought up to me that some parents wanted a tour of the school, of middle school, before they left today. So if you're interested in that, we'll be happy to give you a quick tour. It's not really a question, but.
That wasn't a question. Okay, that's all for us. If you would like to see the middle school facilities, we'll be glad to do that. We'll stay here as long as you have questions if you want to ask us now. If not, feel free, please, at any time to give us a call or an email in the middle school office. And thank you so much for your time today, and we look very much forward to seeing your students, your children in the middle school next year. Thank you, everyone. How you doing?
I haven't been doing this for a long time.
Every fiber of your being.
Thank you very much for the assistance.
Absolutely. The school day is the same. Yeah. The school day is the same. 3 p.m. We're into 3. And so the students will go to, the main differences in the school day is that in middle school they'll go to 4 80-minute blocks. And then they have, in the middle, they have lunch and advisory time. So they
We will
rotate
begin
through.
the tour in about 5 minutes.
They'll rotate
Begin
through
the tour in
4 of
about
their
5
8 classes on Mondays and Wednesdays, and the other 4 on Tuesdays and Thursdays. 8 classes, but I can show you. So we'll just pull up a schedule. That's on. Am I still logged in as you?
Okay. I can lead a middle school tour group if you need me to. Okay.
Okay.
Like if you've got a bunch of questions,
was
if
one
you
of the
want me to
slides.
take some parents, I can.
So
Thank you.
here, okay.
Let's.
So here's a sample schedule. And so at the bottom is their advisory in their club, so you can not worry about those. So they'll have, on Monday, this child would see A block, English class, B block, science class. Then they would go to advisory, then they would go to lunch. And then C block is intro to strings for this child. And then the D block during the first semester is wheel foundations. That would be Monday. And then Tuesday, their first class would be E block, which is math. F block, intro to Spanish. And then advisory lunch. And then G block, social studies, and H block. So there's 8 classes, but they see 4 of each day. Yeah, so it's somewhat like a university stuff. Yeah. And that's I really wanted to be able to show that's like us. I know that's when you're just talking about that, it's kind of hard to picture all of that.
It's like someone then probably explaining that. That would have been. Okay, so 8 blocks, but each day they will be 4.
Yes. 8 classes total, 4 classes. All right.
Very much.
Sure.
Yeah.
And it's good to see you not on the soccer
Yeah.
field this time. All right. Have a good day.
Have a nice day.